We're here at the Truckee Air Show with air show performer Bob Freeman and his Extra 330 puts on a very extreme air show. Bob, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been flying air shows since about 2015, but I've been flying aerobatics since 1980.
Wow.
So I've been at it for a little while.
1980, you were in the biplane days then?
Yeah, I flew a two-seat aerobatic Acroduster 2 for
Really?
about 12 years,
Uh-huh.
and then started moving into monoplanes and getting serious about competition. So I've been flying mostly aerobatic competition for most of my career up until 2017 was sort of the end of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm just focused on air show work.
Focused on shows, because at a competition, you screw one little tiny thing up, zeros. Out here at the shows,
Yeah.
we're not so picky out here at the shows.
That's right. The goal here is to not fly over the crowd and not hit the ground.
That's right. So doing those aerobatic competitions, you're talking plus and minus 8 Gs nowadays.
Typically, yeah, in the
Wow.
unlimited category, we'll see that, and even the advanced category will be pretty high.
But let's show us around here in the cockpit on your Extra 330. Here at the air show, it looks like you were just out practicing the other day and you got a positive, let's see, can you see that? There you go. A positive 8 and a negative.
Looks like a little over 2.
Negative 2. So you'll typically do up to negative 3 out here.
I've removed most of the hard negative G figures from the air show sequence because it's physically abusive.
Yeah.
And really the entertainment value isn't very high compared to positive Gs, and it's physically much less demanding. So my sequence now comes back plus 8, minus 3, minus 4 typically.
And you do maneuvers that well, I'll have a hard time calling because I've never seen them before. And if we even look at your, instead of using an arrestee pattern, he's just uses a list of maneuvers here. And some of these, like the centrifuge, it'll be interesting to see what that is. The Steinway, and a few other things that, well, are very unconventional.
I found that I tried to write this sequence out on using arrestee, and it just doesn't fit on the page.
Yeah.
For one thing, it's just too big, and there's about 80% of what's on this performance is not an arrestee figure anyway. So there's no catalog
That's right.
reference to pull from, and it's just frankly too hard to follow while you're flying the sequence to look at that arrestee card and figure out, yeah, this is what's next. This is pretty easy. It's like read, and I look at it maybe 4 times during a sequence just to reference where am I at? Am I where I'm supposed to be?
And just like in competition, you guys chair fly constantly, or you rehearse it in a quiet spot by yourself. You're walking around, you're doing the maneuvers with your hands.
Yeah.
To get the sequence down.
Yeah.
So this is a certified aircraft, the Extra 330?
Yeah, it's a certified. They make 2 versions of this. There's an experimental version, the 330 LX, that is experimental. This one is certified. I specifically wanted to move from experimental to certified so I can do rides, instruction, that kind of thing.
2 seat, solo from the rear, full set of controls in the front, it looks like.
Yep.
And then a carbon wing.
Yeah, it's a carbon fiber wing over a carbon fiber spar. The fuselage is constructed with steel tube with a carbon fiber shell over the top of it at the front and upper half of the back. The lower part is fabric, classic old
Open
sea
fabric.
with good paint on it.
And this is a symmetrical airfoil,
Yep.
fully symmetrical airfoil. This, go ahead.
Massive aileron.
Oh yeah, look at that. Huge ailerons, huge throws, and counterbalanced here. And this, flip that, this is what?
This is a sight gauge, and it's a reference for, more important for competition than for air shows, but basically if I put this line on the horizon, I'm going to be on a 45-degree upline. If I put this line on the horizon, then I'm going to be on a vertical line. And in competition, we judge, errors by, you lose a point off of a perfect 10 score. Every 5 degrees of error for the entire figure is a point off. So we care about, did you pull vertical? Did you pull, are your wings square? So there's a lot of opportunity for downgrading.
In competition, do you start with a 0 and then get subtraction?
You start with a 10. The assumption is you flew it perfectly, and then the judge takes points away for everything they see that you did not right.
And then once you get to 0, it's just 0, and
It's just zero,
they don't beat you up any further than that.
Yeah. And all the figures are vary in difficulty factor, kind of like gymnastics or diving or whatever. So some figures are extremely complicated with very high K. So if you say you had a 40K figure, like you'd see in an advanced or an unlimited sequence, if you know, it's 10, your score of 10 times 40 is 400 possible points for that figure. A simple figure like a straight line with a roll might be a 10K figure. I don't remember the right number, but it's much lower. So now if you make mistakes, it's a 100-point figure instead of a 400-point figure. So simple figures are less valuable or less critical than the super high K figures. And a whole sequence in unlimited will be about 450K over maybe 14 figures.
And you'll have an unlimited pattern that is known, and then you'll have a portion of the contest which is unknown, and they'll throw something together, and you got to sort it out.
And that's always sporty because the way it works at the world and the national level, if after the first flight, the known, and the second flight, the free program, the person that's in the lead gets to make the recommendation on the first figure in the unknown program.
Ah.
So he writes a figure that he knows a whole lot about, has flown it, that's very difficult, and then the second place pilot gets to put in a figure, can't repeat any elements of the first figure, and he puts in his favorite thing, and then so the top 10 pilots basically define the figures that are going to be in the unknown, and then everybody takes those figures back to their room and puts them in a sequence.
And you can mix them up however you like.
Build it however you want. Then you take the sequence back to the contest jury, and they decide whether it's flyable, whether it's safe and legal, and then they'll post all of them that are, and then the next day the pilots get to go out and say, I don't like my sequence, I'm going to use his. So you can fly anybody's sequence on the board. So the unknowns are a blast, and they usually fly 2 of those in team selection years, and they'll fly 2 of those in the World Championships.
And aerobatic contests are still held all throughout the country every year.
Regional contests are held throughout the year all over the U.S. and some in Canada. And the national championships are held in Salina, Kansas in late September or early October, depending on what's going on at Salina. This year there's a military operation going on, so it got pushed. But so that's a one-time deal. We have typically between 80 and 100 pilots at nationals.
Good.
Split over 5 categories.
So it's still a robust scene. Good. Real quick on the engine, you're running a Lycoming 6-cylinder 3 what?
IO 580.
580.
So it's 580 cubic inches.
But about 315 horsepower?
315 horsepower stock engine. People that have experimental versions of this airplane will put a Thunderbolt engine in them, and it's, I don't know how much more, it's 330 to 350-ish.
And that's fuel injected, yeah, and of course inverted oil as well. Hartzell prop, it looks similar to the Trailblazer, but what's this one called?
This is called a Talon. Hartzell had a phenomenal prop called the Claw, which is, my understanding is the blades were a little bit of a hand-manufactured process. The Talon is a new prop that is based on the old design with the scimitar shape, and it's using more of a high-volume production process. So the cost of this prop is about half what the prop cost as a Claw. It's a wonderful prop. I got this about a year ago, and
smooth, huh?
I love it.
And it pulls quick, huh?
And it's rugged and durable.
Yes.
I've flown it pretty hard. You don't see a wrinkle. You don't see paint chipping. You don't see anything. These things are very durable props.
And then one last thing back here. By the way, there's the spades we talked about on the Husky, and some of the other aircraft over the years help relieve the pressure on the roll rates on the ailerons. Buzzkill, what happened here?
So in late March, I was flying in a formation group practicing for a new airshow performance, and I was in lead, and we had a couple of friends of mine on each wing. And during the approach to the racetrack, I encountered a probably 5-pound turkey vulture. When I saw him, I thought we were going to fly over him, and then at the last second, he came up in front and did, holy cow, his eyes got this big, as did mine. I ducked, and he went past the front of the plane somehow and managed to hit the vertical fin and took about half of this off. This came off, and just above this hinge line, this thing was broken. The rear vertical spar and the vertical fin was crushed. So the upper half of this thing was broken off and sticking out sideways.
Oh.
And the rudder was still attached by 2 rudder bolts down here. The top rudder was still attached to this piece. That's what was holding this on. So it was kind of a interesting process. I talked to the guys that were in formation with me and said, what happened here? What am I missing? Because it wasn't flying right. And the gentleman on the left side said, you're missing half your vertical fin. And the gentleman on the right side said, no, it's there. It's just sticking out sideways. But the landing gear was good, and we were almost lined up with the runway, so I just made a slight heading change, and without changing airspeeds, because I didn't want to let aerodynamic changes take effect that close to the ground, and got into ground effect and then pulled the power and slowed down, basically wheel landing at very high speed. And pulled the power off, and it was uneventful.
Good. Wow. Yeah, 300 feet, too low to do anything else. Fly the airplane.
Yeah.
Bob Freeman, Freeman Airshows. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you here at the Truckee show.
Enjoy the show.
All right.